Thomson was passionate about Glasgow and passionate about improving the living conditions of its people. He wanted to build a new, healthier kind of urban landscape. And his inspiration came from an unlikely place. Argyll Arcade, in the heart of Glasgow. Built in 1827 by Thomson's former boss, John Baird, it was one of the first covered shopping malls in Europe.
This glittering playground for the wealthy might have given Thomson the idea for a radical new housing scheme for the poor.
Thomson's plan replicated Argyll Arcade on a huge scale, with glass and iron canopies spanning the gap between tenements. Beneath this sheltering sky, ordinary people would be able to live and breathe.
It was a revolutionary humane vision, but like most humane visions, it came to nothing.
There's a tragic irony to Thomson's career. Of the many designs that this great architect did realise, many have been lost forever. His tenement on Queen's Park Terrace was bulldozed as recently as 1981. Cowcaddens Cross disappeared a decade earlier. His churches have suffered even worse. Chalmers Free Church in the Gorbals was turned into a factory before being gutted by fire and then levelled in 1971. And his extraordinary Queen's Park Presbyterian Church was destroyed by Luftwaffe incendiary bombs in 1943.
But there was one survivor.
St. Vincent Street Church in the heart of Glasgow city centre. Built in 1859, this massive monolith is jaw-droppingly impressive on the outside. And inside, the surprises just keep on coming. Evan MacDonald is an elder in the Free Church congregation who worship here.
Evan, this is truly astounding. I guess it's the Word of God made manifest in stone and iron and wood.
Well, Thomson, of course, was a man of faith.
I know he was.
And his faith influenced his architecture, I think. Thomson took some references from Solomon's Temple in the design of this building here.
His inspiration was the Temple of Solomon.
Yes, but more than that, there's Egyptian, Assyrian, and classical influences, so it's really an eclectic style in many respects.
How does it feel to work in here and be an elder in this congregation?
Well, it's amazing, really, because this particular space, although it's large, it's warm, it's welcoming, and for singing, it's a good space.
Well, Evan,
the height.
I know as a performing artist that churches of any kind are always the best for acoustics because they were built for the human voice.
Exactly.
When they were built, there was no amplification.
That's right, yes, exactly.
It just had to be the resonance of the human voice, and it's beautiful to play in places like this.
Yes.
Hoi, 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 ho, ho, ho. I mean, that's beautiful. That's an actor's dream.
Twice a day on Sundays and twice during the week, the church opens its doors to people from all over the city, all over the world in fact, to lift their voices in praise. I know this place has an effect on me, but what did churchgoers make of Thomson's masterpiece?
I think as soon as you walk in, it just takes your breath away. It's a magnificent building.
The first time I saw it, I was I was thrilled and I was amazed at how beautiful it is.
It's just very sort of worshipful in a way to be worshipping God, creator of beauty, in a beautiful building like this.
Alexander Thomson was a dreamy visionary, a deep-thinking intellectual, a devout man of religion. But there was another side to Glasgow's master builder.
Roger Guthrie first began salvaging bits of Thomson buildings 45 years ago. Today he's collected a treasure trove of artifacts that show how the architect was at the cutting edge of engineering and technology.
Roger, what are these pieces of substantial glass?
Plate glass, 1/4 inch thick, a new material. It starts off in, being used more frequently in the 1830s. So in the 1850s, Thomson's grasping these modern materials with great enthusiasm and using large sheets of glass. This is from an office building, it's etched glass. And the second piece of glass is from a very nice villa in Pollokshields. I got that out the skip when they were refurbishing the building and took it home in the back of a 59 bus. But
In the dark of night when no one saw you?
No. But Thomson's interesting because it's in Vincent Street Church. He uses plate glass like this and it's directly glazed into the stone. So there's no frames taking away from the light.
Another industrial material which Thomson used enthusiastically was that ultimate Victorian innovation, decorative cast iron.
What's the history of these pieces? That's an extraordinary.
Yes, well that's the end post for the, watch yourself, for the adjoining piece of railing. It's from the same building that the piece of etched glass came from. And it's a standard design which Thomson designs very, very successfully. He uses it in his own office and lots of other Glasgow architects use the same design. But things like that were private patterns and only Thomson could use. Which is really quite a gorgeous wee bit of iron.
That's a beautiful piece.
And that could nearly be, that would fit very well in a Gaudi house in Barcelona.
In Barcelona?
It
wouldn't be out of place at all.
While all this beautiful metalwork was designed to be on show, Thomson also used groundbreaking new iron technology within the structure of his buildings.
So, David, this is a Robert McConnell compound beam, invented in 1856.
That's just like a giant version of my Meccano set I had as a kid.
Yeah, except this could span, say, 12, 15 metres.
You've got a visionary architect who's using the contemporary industrial techniques to realise his vision.
Yes. So in places like St Vincent Street Church, there is one McConnell compound beam and it carries the back gallery of the church, which has got absolute clear span with no columns. So he's quite a magician.
What comes across in talking to enthusiasts like Roger is that Thomson was plugged into a city that was at the forefront of technological innovation. He didn't hanker after a pre-industrial past. He wanted to build on the legacy of the ancient Greeks and create his own very personal response to the tumult and excitement of the times.
These are Thomson's Grecian chambers on Sauchiehall Street. Built to house shops and offices, today they're the home of the Centre for Contemporary Arts. But they're also a time capsule, containing clues about Victorian Glasgow's explosive growth. Walk through to the inner courtyard and you discover an older building hidden behind Thomson's facade. Architect Karen Pickering knows this Russian doll of a structure inside out.
Karen, we have this extraordinary situation which is very, very unique. We have a building inside a building. One half, the outer half, is Thomson, and the inside isn't.
Yes, there's a really interesting story about the site. So the original building on the site was this villa, and this was probably built in about 1825. So imagine this is your front door and your garden slopes down a nice south-facing garden.
Yes, because this must have been ground level. This is the front door of the villa.
Yes.
And
So
we're now at least 1.5 stories up, aren't we? Can you explain how that came about?
yes, so Sauchiehall Street at that time was beautiful big villas set within gardens. It was very suburban. Then obviously industrialisation happened and the city centre spread west. And 1865 is when Greek Thomson appeared with the Grecian chambers.
So what was Thomson's first task when he came here?
So he built the Grecian chambers, but then what he did was excavated underneath the villa. So the villa is actually just sitting on stilts, surrounded by other buildings.
Propped up by Thomson's cast iron columns, the CCA has room for everything from art exhibitions to musical performances. But while the Grecian chambers are a hive of activity, arguably the most spectacular of his commercial buildings lies empty these days. Built in 1873, the grid-like framework of the Egyptian halls contained everything from shops to lecture rooms to exhibition spaces. Today, the exotic building on Union Street is surrounded by scaffolding, with only a printed plastic shroud hinting at what lies beneath. But the fact that the Egyptian halls have been vacated and stripped out gives you a rare glimpse of the stone and iron skeleton beneath Thomson's masterpiece. Mark Baines is an architect, lecturer and chair of the Alexander Thomson Society.
Mark, what does this fairly distressed interior tell us about Thomson's way of working and his methods?
This tells us about his elemental approach to architecture. It's about simplicity, from which derives a great deal of complexity. But basically, it's about columns and lintels, not arches, as he used in the early part of his career.
Reminds me very much of Stonehenge.
It is. He described that as the most sophisticated piece of, let's call it architectural engineering, that there was, and that was centuries ago. This is more stable, ultimately, than that.
Why is that stronger than this? I mean, I've always thought...
Because it's made up of 3 elements as opposed to a number of different and specially shaped elements.
But surely once those different and specially shaped pieces are all put together, they are conceivably just as strong as...
They spread the load this way, right? So they've got to be buttressed, whereas the load in the lintel and the beam goes straight down. And the whole thing relies on the keystone.
So what happens if you remove the keystone?
Do you want me to show you?
Yes, please.
Okay, here we go.
The strength of Thomson's column and lintel framework has enabled this incredible building to weather years of neglect. But today, its future is in doubt. John Addison is a conservationist and engineer involved in the attempt to bring the Egyptian halls back to life.
My history goes back about 18 years when I first got involved in this fantastic place. And in that time, we've watched it deteriorate. Not to the extent that it's fallen down or anything like that, it just simply has degraded due to the amount of water that got into it over the years.
How great a loss would it be to the city if this disappeared, this building?
But it would be a tragedy to lose the thing, because this glorious piece of Thomson architecture, it reflects a great architect in the great city. He was a technologist, he was a thinker, he was a philosopher, indeed a poet. This place represents him all the way through space and time.
John, do you think there's a viable future for this building?
There's lots of futures. I think one of the key things is to bring everybody together in Glasgow and make it work.